Greetings, loyal subjects of the Imperium of Man. I am Librarian Elias of the Adeptus Astartes. I am creating a series of recordings with the intent of educating the general populace of the dangers of the galaxy. All of this information comes from the Lexicanum, provided to me by the Adeptus Mechanicus. I will be reading verbatim from their archives. This recording will cover one of the many foes the Imperium faces. Traitor Primarch of the 3rd Legion, Fulgrim. Fulgrim, also known as the Phoenician, the Illuminator, the Prefector of Chemos, is the Primarch of the Emperor's Children, one of the 20 Primarchs created by the Emperor in the earliest days of the Imperium, just after the end of the Age of Strife. Fulgrim, like the other Primarchs, was sucked from Terra by the gods of chaos and placed on a faraway world in an attempt to prevent the coming age of the Imperium, constantly seeking to emulate the Emperor by perfecting himself. Fulgrim's obsession bred a hubris that drove him to eventually be consumed by the chaos god Slanesh. Talia, Khorne, and Solax were laborers of the resource-poor world of Chemos, sent to investigate a meteorite impact. Sent without transport, the three had to take shelter from a wildstorm in an abandoned factory. When they reached the impact site, they didn't find a fallen satellite or spacecraft. They found an ever-shifting mass of light. Solax was wary, but Khorne felt that it was harmless. Khorne watched the light take shape, and it touched his mind, learning everything he did before it took the shape of a perfectly formed baby boy. Solax wanted to kill the child, seeing it as a burden on their resources, but the child had entranced Khorne and refused. Talia shot Solax, and neither of them felt any guilt over killing him to save the perfect baby. Noticing that a stream of pure water had formed where the baby had landed, Khorne decided to name the child after the water-bringer of Chemos' creation myth, Fulgrim. Fulgrim spent his early years as a humble factory worker, but soon became a legend in his own right. At half the age of his fellow workers, he was able to fulfill his obligations to the continual running of the fortress factory of Kallax with ease. He quickly grew to understand the technology that he had to work with, and began to modify it, increasing efficiency dramatically. By the time he was 15 years of age, Fulgrim had risen from the rank of worker and became one of the executives ruling the settlement. Learning of the gradual deterioration of both Kallax and all of the settlements in Chemos, Fulgrim decided he would save his world. Under Fulgrim's leadership, teams of engineers traveled far from their factory fortress, reclaiming and repairing many of the far-flung mighty outposts. As minerals poured back into Kallax, Fulgrim supervised the construction of more sophisticated and energy-efficient machinery. As recycling efficiency grew to the point where Chemos was producing a surplus for the first time in years, Fulgrim began to foster a re-emergence of art and culture, aspects of humanity sacrificed in the struggle for survival. Other settlements allied themselves with Kallax, and 50 years after arriving on Chemos, Fulgrim was its sole leader. Fulgrim battled many foes during this time, most notably the sword dances of Sulfur. He also engaged in many political marriages to secure the loyalty of other factory cities, marrying several times but quickly outliving his spouses. According to Fulgrim, he loved some of these spouses at first, but after a while stopped caring. Before the heresy, Fulgrim was a warrior that enjoyed the finer arts of civilization and culture of his people, such as art, music, and celebration. He believed that there was little point in conquering the galaxy if they did not indulge in these civilized traits. Fulgrim himself also engaged in the arts and created marble statues of his two first captains, though he felt that his work was not perfect. One of Fulgrim's noted character traits was adopted by his legion was the quest for perfection. He believed that mankind was the perfect creation and that they must strive to emulate his father, the Emperor. As such, he was greatly angered whenever this goal was challenged. He demonstrated this in his hostility to adapting the Leia as a protectorate, and believed that only humanity had the right to rule. There was, however, a flaw here that he secretly believed that there was something wrong with him and his legion due to the near disaster that claimed half of their number before the start of the Great Crusade. This allowed others to exploit him, and was the reason why he accepted Fabius Miles' genetic treatments of the Legion. Among his fellow Primarchs, Fulgrim's friendships were deepest with Ferrus Manus and Horus, though the former was a stronger bond. It was not long after that the planet's isolation came to an end. From the grey sky came a flight of dropships, armored and battle-scarred, each bearing the same symbol, a two-headed eagle. On hearing this, some fragment of memory stirred in Fulgrim. Chemos had no formal army, but the dropship's landing zone had been surrounded by the caretakers, the police soldiers responsible for maintaining order in the factory fortresses. Fulgrim sent word to the caretakers to stand down and allow the visitors from above into Calax. In his Spartan quarters, Fulgrim was faced by armored warriors from the stars. Their faces bore the scars of many battles, and from their shoulders hung scrolls listing their achievements. Their armor and weapons were finely worked, and their banners and pennants were works of art. Fulgrim recognized that these men were not merely advanced, but civilized. His lost brothers from the stars had preserved the arts he had longed to return to Chemos. From the midst of these warriors stepped their leader, the Emperor of Humanity. Fulgrim surveyed him, and without a word, knelt and offered his sword. On that day, Fulgrim swore to serve the Imperium with all his heart. From the Emperor, Fulgrim learned of the distant world of Terra, of the Great Crusade to reclaim the sundered galaxy, and of his own origins. It is unknown when exactly this event occurred. However, it is recorded that in the construction of a starship for the Primarch of the Third Legion was completed around 160 years before the beginning of the Horus Heresy. Traveling to Terra to meet his new legion, Fulgrim learned that an accident had destroyed the majority of the gene seed designated for his legion, and without their Primarch, replacing it was a slow and laborious process. Fulgrim came to address the 200 Space Marines of his legion, and the words he spoke were said to inspire the Emperor so much that he named the legion the Emperor's Children, and allowed them to bear the sign of the Aquila, the double-headed eagle that was the Emperor's personal symbol, on their power armor. Fulgrim became driven by the notion that his legions should strive to live up to this honor and the perfection of the Emperor in his vision of imperial culture. This drive to achieve perfection soon applied to all things the Primarch and his legion became concerned with, from military tactics to the embrace of artistic culture that didn't exist on Chemos to the very appearances. Fulgrim was a particularly imposing sight, with shimmering white shoulder-length hair, large, friendly-seeming eyes, and a mouth that was now far from a smile. His armor was of the finest quality, and intricately decorated. Over it, he often wore one of a variety of high-collared cloaks. Fulgrim was anxious to make his contribution to the Great Crusade, but the comparatively small size of his legion meant that the Emperor's children were placed under the command of Horus and his lunar wolves. Horus and Fulgrim grew close to one another while pacifying the Eastern Fringe. Eventually, swallowed by recruits from both Chemos and Terra, Fulgrim was soon able to lead on a crusade of his own, bringing countless worlds into the light of the Imperium. Fulgrim saw perfection and spectacle in these campaigns, as demonstrated when he took the world of Byzas, with only 7 men, despite nearly dying in the process. Fulgrim also established a close friendship with his brother Ferrus Manus, who also attempted to purge the imperfection from himself. Ferrus and Fulgrim eventually came to each other to try to build the perfect weapon, resulting in Fulgrim creating Forgebreaker and Ferrus Fireblade. The two exchanged weapons and they became synonymous with their respective Primarchs thereafter. In the later stages of the Crusade, the Emperor's children soon made a name of themselves during it, battling fearsome enemies such as the Megarachnids and the Diasporex. During this time, the Emperor's children initiated the cleansing of Leiran, a campaign that required great effort, dedication, and sacrifice from the Imperial forces. At the conclusion of this campaign, Fulgrim acquired a trophy from the field of battle, a Xenos-manufactured sword recovered from a Lyran temple known as the Silver Blade of Leia. He would begin to wield this sword more often than Fireblade, his customary personal weapon. With the benefit of hindsight, it can be recognized that the Lyran sword was a demon weapon. It is now believed that this demon sword began to exert a strong chaotic influence over Fulgrim, and that the forces he had deployed against the Leia may have become tainted by the chaos power Slaanesh. It is in this perilous spiritual condition that Fulgrim found himself at the center of the emerging Horus heresy. Fulgrim himself met with the renowned Farseer Eldred Ulthran of Ulthway on the maiden world of Tarsus, in which the Farseer attempted to warn Fulgrim of Horus's grievous wounding at the hands of Eugen Timber and his anathema, and how he was slowly beginning to turn to chaos as he recuperated. Fulgrim reacted with outrage at the Farseer's accusations due to his close friendship with Horus, second only to his bond with Ferris and Menace. This was spurred on by the influence of Fulgrim's Lyran blade, which was infused with a Slaaneshi entity. Fulgrim furiously attacked Eldred alongside his captains, the Phoenix Guard, destroying both Kira and Goldhelm, an ancient and revered Wraith Lord, as well as an avatar of Cain in the process, forcing Eldred and his beleaguered forces to withdraw. This victory led to Fulgrim's subsequent destruction of various Eldar maiden worlds, using virus bombs as a means to end the supposed treachery of the Eldar. Whilst the exact timing and placement of it varies between versions of the story, it is clear that Fulgrim soon met Horus in person, demanding a personal account of his actions. Instead, Horus was able to sway Fulgrim to his cause. Fulgrim's respect for Horus allowed chaos to find its way into Fulgrim's heart, destroying Fulgrim's loyalty to Terra and replacing it with a burning desire to destroy the men who held humanity back from the perfection Fulgrim desired. Fulgrim was immediately sent to meet with Ferris Manus, Primarch of the Iron Hands. Great bonds of friendship and blood existed between them, and Fulgrim felt he could convince Ferris of the righteousness of Horus's cause. He was wrong, however, and the meeting did not go well and concluded in violence. When next the brothers met, it would be as enemies. The path chosen, the chaotic rot sped quickly, from Fulgrim to his lieutenants, the Lord Commanders of the Legion, then to company and squad leaders, and finally, all but a bare handful of Marines followed Slaanesh rather than the Emperor. Perfection became perfect hedonism. Fulgrim's mental state quickly deteriorated. He began talking to a painting by Serrata de Angelis and killed the sculptor Ostian Delafor after he inadvertently slighted the Primarch. When the Loyalist legions arrived in the Istvan system, the Emperor's children were at the forefront of the fighting, aiding in the massacre of their former brethren. During the infamous Dropsite massacre, Fulgrim and Ferris Manus met once again and had their final and fateful duel. Fulgrim wielded the weapon that he made for his brother, the Thunderhammer Forgebreaker, while Ferris did the same with the sword Fireblade. Though both weapons were shattered, Fulgrim proved the victor after taking up his silver blade, but discovered he could not bring himself to kill his brother. It was at this point that the demon bound within the Lyran blade fully exerted itself, and Ferris Manus was struck dead. Fulgrim was shocked into clear thinking by the death of his brother, aghast at what he had done and at the horrific betrayal and carnage before him. In a further moment of weakness, he agreed to the demon's power descended to oblivion and allowed the war creature to escape from the sword. It took but a moment for it to possess him, body and soul, trapping his consciousness in a tiny corner of his mind. From that moment on, Fulgrim became a prisoner in his own form, his existence fully controlled by the Slaaneshi demon. Fulgrim's soul was trapped in the twisted painting of Serrata de Angelis. The only person aware of the fate of Fulgrim was Horus, who recognized the demonic possession almost immediately during the next meeting, but considered Fulgrim too valuable an asset to lose. Lorgar Magnus also became aware of the true nature of Fulgrim upon encountering him. However, in the months afterwards, Fulgrim was able to regain his body by unknown means, trapping its essence in the same painting he had been trapped in. This was only revealed to his legion when a group of captains led by Lucius realized what had happened to their Primarch and took Fulgrim captive. He allowed them to do this to prove he was no longer possessed and tried to make the demon release its hold over him through extreme torture. Fulgrim revealed that he had forced the demon out and had been himself for some time, and had chosen to devote himself to Slaanesh fully and of his own free will. Fulgrim soon joined forces with Perturabo, Primarch of the Iron Warriors, on the world of Hydra Cordatus. Promising the Lord of Iron perfection, the two embarked on a quest to tip the balance of the rebellion in Horus's favor. By journeying into the Eye of Terror and to retrieve a weapon known as the Angel Exterminatus. Shortly before they were to leave, Fulgrim was hit by a direct headshot from the vengeful Sisyphean crew member Daemon Prince. Fulgrim survived the wound, however thanks to the efforts of Fabius Bile, after a brief boarding battle with the Sisyphean that saw the ship escape yet again. The two Primarchs arrived in the Eye and quickly landed in the Crone world of Idris, entering an ancient Eldar citadel known as the Amon, Nishak, Kalis. The Emperor's children and Iron Warriors had to contend with an army of Wraith Guard and Wraith Lords that had awoken from their slumber. At the height of the vicious battle, Fulgrim attempted to betray his brother and slip away, but was pursued by Perturabo. Both soon arrived in the massive spherical chamber, and Fulgrim revealed to his brother that there was no Angel Exterminatus, but he rather was destined to become such a weapon on this world. Furious, Perturabo attempted to attack Fulgrim, but was drained of his power when Fulgrim activated the Malgatar Stone that Perturabo had previously received under the guise of a gift. Now, with the Iron Warrior's Primarch's power in hand, Fulgrim revealed the purpose of his plan to achieve apotheosis, better known as demonhood. However, just as Fulgrim was about to complete his ritual and achieve demonhood, Perturabo gathered enough strength to charge at his brother, but were interrupted by an ambush of salamanders, Iron Hands, and Raven Guard, who had been stalking the traitor fleet in search of vengeance since the Dropsite massacre. One of the loyalist Astartes during the battle shattered the Malgatar Stone, freeing some of Perturabo's energy and giving him the ability to strike down Fulgrim with his Thunderhammer. However, Perturabo only managed to destroy the Primarch's mortal skin, and he was reborn as the Daemon Prince of Slaanesh. Now a massive but elegant serpentine creature, Fulgrim told his brother that they would meet again, and then vanish in a burst of warp energy, along with his Emperor's children. Fulgrim next appeared answering Horus's summons at the Battle of Duel, where he was tasked to lead the Emperor's children to the Halakanaxis stars. Before he could depart, Fulgrim survived another Iron Hands assassination attempt, this time by Shadrach Medusan and a trio of fire raptors. Fulgrim displayed his potent new abilities in the fight, destroying one of the loyalist aircraft with his psychic powers. Afterwards, Fulgrim was tasked by Horus to secretly corrupt the Knight's House of Devine in preparations of the Battle of Molech. Following these tasks, Fulgrim largely vanished as he has become more concerned with the matters of the warp, and his legion disintegrated into various warbands. However, Horus and Eidolon were both confident that he would ultimately return when they reached Terra. After Horus issued his muster for the traitor Primarchs to gather at Ulanor in preparation for the March on Terra, Fulgrim still could not be found. Thus, Lorgar volunteered to find Fulgrim and bring him back to Horus's war effort. By accessing the webway, Lorgar and his entourage eventually arrived inside the Eye of Terror, and then the palace of Slaanesh itself. Inside, they found Fulgrim engaged in debauchery and degeneracy with his new consort, Nakari. Fulgrim refused Lorgar's demand to come to Ulanor with him, stating that he did not simply care about the war anymore. Lorgar refused to back down, and the two sides came to battle. As Fulgrim was about to strike Lorgar, the Dark Apostle, Sardu Lyak, uttered the secret true name of Fulgrim's newly elevated demonic form. Fulgrim was bound to the will of Lilac and forced to come with Lorgar. With a cry across the warp, Fulgrim gathered the Emperor's children back to himself, and by the time the royal bearers reached Ulanor, the Legion was whole once more. In truth, Lorgar intended to use the enslaved Fulgrim as a part of a plan for him to kill Horus and take his place as War Master. However, when Lorgar's coup quickly unraveled, unraveled when the Oracle Akatea revealed his plans to Horus, and Zardu Lilac freed Fulgrim from his binding instead of ordering him to attack Horus as originally intended. Fulgrim urged Horus to kill Lorgar, but instead the Primarch was banished from the War Master's sight after a vicious beating. Fulgrim licked the blood from Lorgar's taste, enjoying the sweet taste of revenge upon his former jailer. Fulgrim stayed by Horus' side during the muster at Ulanor, and he and the Emperor's children pledged themselves to the march on Terra. During the final stages of the Civil War, Fulgrim appeared aboard the Pride of the Emperor as a part of the massive trader fleet. All trace of decency amongst the Emperor's children had vanished by the time they partook in the siege of Terra. During the early stages of the siege, Fulgrim did little, goading Aegron into fits of fury for his own amusement, and constantly requesting that Horus let himself be unleashed upon Terra. He oversaw a major attack on the southeastern region of the walls of the palace, but failed to penetrate the Emperor's psychic shield. During a meeting of the traitor leaders, he mocked Poterabo for refusing the delights chaos had to offer. While other traitor legions assaulted the Imperial Palace, the Emperor's children embarked upon the spree of terror and gratification amongst the helpless citizenry of Terra. Even by the early stages of the battle, they simply launched attacks to drag away prisoners for their own amusement. However, Abaddon was able to get Eidolon to somehow convince Fulgrim to lead the whole of the Emperor's children against the Saturnine Gate in a bid to quickly end the battle. During the assault on Saturnine, Fulgrim massacred his way across Imperial fists until he encountered Sigismund. Battling the first captain, Fulgrim was impressed with Sigismund's abilities, but quickly outmatched the Imperial Fist's champion. As he was about to finish Sigismund, Fulgrim was then confronted by Rogal Dorn himself. The two Primarchs did battle, with Fulgrim constantly goading and taunting his brother. Dorn refused to respond to Fulgrim's taunts, and seemed to have the advantage against the traitorous Primarch, who was transformed into a standard Primarch form, as opposed to that of a Daemon Prince. Dorn managed to counter every attack and impale Fulgrim, but the Phoenician laughed off the damage as he rapidly regenerated and declared he can't die. It was then that Fulgrim learned that Abaddon's attack beneath Saturnine had failed, dooming the assault on the walls with it. No longer interested in the battle and annoyed with his allies, Fulgrim transformed into his demonic visage and abandoned the fight. However, before he left, he gave Dorn a parting gift by summoning his elite guard by Eidolon to assassinate his brother. Under Fulgrim, billions of defenseless civilians were used as experimental subjects in the effort to create ever more powerful stimulants and pleasure-inducing chemicals used to summon demons, or simply killed to save the bloodlust of the Legion. When Horus was defeated by the Emperor's children left a trail of depopulated worlds in their wake as they fled towards the Eye of Terra. As the supply of slaves was exhausted, they resorted to raiding other traitor legions for fresh meat, leading to a series of conflicts known as the Legion War. Fulgrim was seen in combat a century after the heresy at the Battle of Thessala, with Rabuti Gilliman, the Primarch of the Ultramarines, where he slashed his brother's throat and laid him low with a fatal poison before disappearing from records for many centuries. The Emperor's children claimed that Fulgrim was gifted by Slaanesh with a hidden world of unlimited pleasure for him to rule. Several centuries after the heresy, he was said to be asleep on his world and not active in guiding the Emperor's children. Warbands of Emperor's children, other Slaanesh-worshipping Chaos Space Marines and cultists, and the Imperial Inquisition have sought out this world, but none have returned. Abaddon the Despoiler was also able to somehow find Fulgrim, and was able to gain the favor of Slaanesh by trading an unblemished Pythosian psycho with the Primarch. During the 13th Black Crusade, it is thought that Fulgrim appeared to massacre Imperial Guard during the cacophony of Extremis 6. Fulgrim made another appearance at the conclusion of the Ultramar campaign in the closing days of M41 through the efforts of the Mechanicum and the Eldar. Rabuti Gilliman was healed from all the wounds inflicted by Fulgrim. Fulgrim sensed his brother's revival and took the time to possess the Arch-Consul of Macragge in order to gloat to Guilliman during his first public appearance in 10,000 years. Through the body of the Arch-Consul, Fulgrim announces that Guilliman would have many temptations to resist, and that any feeling of self-satisfaction would be his doom. Later he appeared during the Semisset Planet Strike, where he slew the Iron Hands captain Sin Grolvok. At some point in the 41st millennium, Fulgrim was lured back to Isfan III by a sonic beacon. There, he was confronted by the sole surviving Loyalist Emperor's children, the dreadnought Rylanor. As Fulgrim tore the dreadnought apart, an unexploded virus bomb was detonated and engulfed the planet. Though Fulgrim's form survived, his pride was wounded. According to some reports, sometime before M41, Fabius Bile managed to create a perfect clone of Fulgrim. Unlike all previous attempts, this clone was pure and uncorrupted, with not even a hint of the warp affecting him. Why this one had succeeded was unknown, even to Fabius. The clone aged to adulthood quickly, his Primarch genetic memory allowing him to learn quickly, as well as remember the events of the Horus Heresy. Expressing regret for his actions and downfall, he swore to wipe away the sins of his past and atone for his treason. However, this clone was taken by Trazen the Infinite when Fabius betrayed him, fearing the clone would go down the same route as before. This concludes the information regarding Fulgrim. More in-depth information regarding him will be recorded at a later date. This is Librarian Elias, signing off.